now we're going to go into our third panel discussion for this morning, and it is stepping into the post-pandemic era, riding the wave of digital transformation 2.0. So according to IDC, DX has entered the 2.0 era, laying the foundation of future enterprises where digital operations achieve scale and innovation speed is a magnitude greater than of traditional businesses. Leading this, we have moderator, Mr. Allan Tan, our beloved group editor-in-chief from Society, and he has more than 36 years of experience, which makes him, having come into the industry at the age of 15. So he is our editor. He oversees our editorial team for FutureCIO, Future CFO. So he's the person that you want to go and ask all your questions during lunch break. And then we have our four panelists: Jacky Koh, IT and Data Analytics Director of KRISSHOP; Mohamed Hardi, Director and CIO of National Heritage Board; Niels Maerkedahl, CIO for Business Banking and CTO for Digital Platforms, Standard Chartered Bank; and Yo Loy Siu, Chief Information Technology Officer of BOC Aviation. And I'd like to introduce you, and I'd like to now invite you all on stage. Thank you.
Felicia did a very short intro. Yoy, why don't you do a very, very quick intro? Name, company, title, business of the company.
Yo Loy Siu. I'm the CIO of BOC Aviation. We are the largest aircraft lessor in Asia, top 5 in the world. So we own 608 aircraft, and our customers are some of the biggest airlines around the world.
It's not branded by them. So if you want to go into a business and you need aircraft, there you go. There's a BOC Aviation over there for you. Jacky, go on.
Hello, hi. My name is Jacky. So I'm the IT and Data Analytics Director of KRISSHOP. So KRISSHOP is a subsidiary company under the SIE Group, and we are mainly focusing on the e-commerce and the travel retail segment of the business.
Things like duty-free sometimes, right?
Yep.
Okay. Hardi?
Hey, hi, I'm Hardi. I'm actually the Director and CIO for the National Heritage Board. And well, welcome to Singapore for those of you who are not from Singapore. We manage the 10 museums and heritage institutions in Singapore today, especially for the heritage sector.
It's been a while since I've been to one of the museums in Singapore. Last time my kids were still small. Nowadays my kids have all left the house already. Okay. Nice. Niels?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Niels from Standard Chartered Bank. I look after our business banking, so SME business globally. And then what we call digital platforms, that's anything sort of around marketing, CRM, banking as a service, partnerships, a little bit of digital assets. We'll see where that goes, given the current environment.
Now, our original topic is riding the wave of digital transformation 2.0. I want to regroup, ask this group again, which I didn't, and they're not prepared, so this is an impromptu for them. What is your understanding of what digital transformation 2.0, at least in your line of business, right? You don't have to talk about the whole industry, but in your line of business, how, and okay. Let's say, Loy, what's yours?
Yeah, I think it's about enabling the users, not so much from the technology perspective, but culturally, adopting a digital mindset and really leveraging digital capabilities to enable the business to grow and be resilient. Yeah.
So enable the business group. What about you, Jacky?
Okay, from my perspective wise, it's really about the after the post-pandemic. I think digital transformation won't stop from there. That's where things will still carry on. But the focus really will be on the business impact that the transformation do to the business.
So again, it's still within the business. Hardi?
Well, I think ours is a bit more interesting. During COVID, the digital transformation is really making sure that when you are at home, especially if you're in Singapore, how we helped you to go through that COVID or circuit breaker exercise. I think for us, digital transformation 2.0 is a bit different. It's how we change the organization today so that, especially with cloud and all the other new stuff that you do, how can we get your people and your staff to actually be with you?
So in case you're observing, there's actually a theme coming here, right? Niels?
Yeah, for me, I think about it from two angles. One is, I think it's now getting to the point of the hard work. All the channels, I think, is the easy work. Below that is the difficult and really complex transformational aspect. And second is breaking down boundaries with external partners and building an ecosystem. I think that's the only way to go for many organizations, and especially in our area.
Yeah, that's something that you would observe. Digital transformation actually introduced the concept of sharing. It's no longer, I am a bank and I do everything. It's no longer vertical integration. It's now bringing everybody in across, because you realize that you can't do everything economically, right? You can, certainly if you're a big enough company, you can do almost everything, but it's not as economical, profitable for the business if I have to manufacture every lot, stock, and barrel that I sell on the shop floor, right? So I have to ask this question, and again, oh, by the way, speaking of question, this platform is not meant for you as a movie. You're not here to watch a movie. Am I clear? This is not a movie where you're sitting there and watching what the show here. We're not going to beat each other up, but it's still not a show. It's meant for you to tell us questions you want to ask. You've got an esteemed panel group here. Two on the aviation, come on, retailing, e-commerce, okay? You've got National Heritage Report. You got very almost government, semi-government, and of course you've got a bank representation, financial services. They have different understandings of what technology is and how it's being adopted both externally as they engage customers and internally as they engage their employees and their business partners. So this session is more about engaging our business partners. So please use the platform. It's we're not tracking you. You can post it anonymously, ask the question away, and hopefully we'll have the audience. And we'll flip it up here so that people can see the audience, the questions that are coming in. So second question I have, IDC, and Felicia mentioned this earlier, IDC says digital transformation is about empowering. So I just asked a question earlier. It's actually, if you listen to all the questions they said, they were talking about internal operations and external, but they were not talking about customer engagement. No, they were talking about how do we get our employees to transform with us as part of our digital initiative, whatever that is. How do we get our business partners to work with us? So the question I have to ask, and I'm not going to ask all of them in the interest of time, I'll ask Jacky first, and then I'll ask YL here. Can you empower frontline employees and still retain sufficient oversight to ensure compliance and regulation? So we're looking at two things. On the one side, you say, employees, I need you to do whatever it takes to engage your customers, okay? Whether you also collaboratively internally. But at the same time, you've got your CIO and CTO, your CISOs over there and the compliance officer saying, hang on, you have governance that you need to deal with, contend with. So I wanted to ask Jacky. Jacky, since you're in the analytics side, is it possible to empower employees, still stay compliant, and then use all of these analytic tools available for us to really achieve this so-called transformation 2.0?
Generally, yes, it's achievable, but of course there is a process to it. A lot of the internal reviews on the security policies, everything have to be done. I think for after the pandemic, it changes the way that we work. The way hybrid, the need for access of data, the need for BYOD, collaboration tools and stuff like that, as what they mentioned in the previous fireside chat for the speaker. So all these are things that the frontliners would require. Yeah, the need for access and all this. So from the business or the organization perspective, one of the things that we really have to do is to review through the security policies that we have, really ensuring that people, which is the biggest weakness, is doing things according to what they are required to do. Of course, one thing that maybe I will share an example would be on the previous, they talk about the MFA part of things. So there's some of the MFA process that just only require you to click on approve. When you receive the notification, you just click on approve. But there's always this process that every week, be it where 5 days, 7 days, depending on the company policy, that you have to authenticate yourself, always again. So in the whole review process, we remove the process of clicking approve because there is a vulnerability in that. There is a gap in that point.
You can spoof that one, right?
Correct. If you are being phished and then you receive a notification and then you just click on approve, that's where everything is gone. So in part of the review process, what we did was to totally disable that and then only stick to the OTP process, the challenge process. Yeah.
Interesting. What about, since Jacky here spoke about security, what about your perspective?
Yeah, I think the pandemic, right, has demonstrated that we can enable our frontline workers to work remotely, productively and effectively, right? I mean, the pandemic showed that it can be done, right? And the technologies are there. Even before COVID-19, right? Earlier, the fireside chat talked about zero trust, network access, MFA and all that. So those things are already there. It's just that COVID has elevated the importance of such capabilities. So definitely we can ensure that security not being compromised and oversight through the use of these tools and platforms. However, it becomes very challenging when you have frontline workers who don't have reliable connectivity. Like for our case, we do have aircraft delivery managers who are deployed at the manufacturing plants of Boeing and Airbus to facilitate the delivery of planes. And they don't always have even cellular signal. So what we did was we built very lightweight applications and allow them to transact just enough information. And when they are back to connection zone again, those information is uploaded. So some of it you have to tailor the capabilities based on the use case to enable your workers to work remotely. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Now, just FYI, so these are questions behind me or in front of us here. You can see them up. You don't need to look behind. Yeah, if you do a thumbs up, it goes up. So the more people like a question, the higher up it goes. So while we're waiting, we wait for you to submit questions. Guys, remember, this is not a show. Please do submit your question. I want to ask this group here. Niels, okay, you're banking, corporate banking, right?
Business banking.
Not retail. Okay, business banking.
And some retail stuff.
Now, given the immediate future seems to be about fluidity, we've started agility and accountability, because we're seeing CFOs demanding it already by business stakeholders. How do you keep the focus on holistic innovation, because it's an area that you focus on a lot? How do you keep the focus on holistic innovation while driving the core business? How do you do the same?
Well, for me, I think innovation is a bit of an overused term, to be honest. In simple language, I think of innovation as something where you do something different to create value. So that could be as simple as removing an OTP obstacle, or creating a different experience, or whatever it could be. Now that said, I think for us, what's important is, to the point I made earlier around the ecosystem, is really to think about how do we expand the interfaces we have with consumers? How do we actually start providing banking services on other platforms? How do we create that interaction? So for us, when it also comes to the investment for the next 12 to 18 months, that's really a big part of it. Moving from direct through relationship management or direct sales to interaction in a much broader ecosystem. That's one thing. The second thing is, yes, you need agility. And personally, I'm not a fan of projects, capitalized projects. I think they are defined as something that has to start and something that has to end, which is completely contradictory to how actually we should think about our platforms and products. We should build small and then iteratively scale as we learn, as we interact with customers, as we find out new partners or new experiences or new products we want to offer. So I think that's for me a big thing we're trying to work on. It's not easy, given the CFO room next door and other things, but I think that's really important to do. Otherwise, if you continue to be in a project-driven organization, you are never going to be agile enough.
Hardi, what about your perspective on this?
Well, I think also I'd like to just touch on the question on the biggest challenges that you face in your transformation journey. For us itself, yes, the tech was good. I mean, we do have very good SOPs and policies. We also have downsized operations. We've done centralization within the heritage sector. So these are some of the tools that we've done and practices we've put in, especially when you start off your transformation journey. Ours was a 5-year journey. We are now about 26 months into it. But moving forward, I think the biggest challenges that you face, it's really people. And that's the one that you have to be very careful of. Your staff can be with you or without you, or it can be against you. And coming on that front, you do have 2 areas you will want to consider. One, trying to retain the people that you have, the good ones, being able to train, upskill them, being able to make sure that they have the capability. Second, the staff that actually does your day-to-day work and making sure that, for example, from security to phishing to the type of work that they do, they don't become that legacy or that liability in your organization. And I think that's something that you have to put up, you have to also upgrade as you go along. And that's a challenge that I have over the next 18 to 12 months. The reason is we've improved things like phishing, scams and stuff like that in our industry, for example, especially when we face customers, visitors. But what can we do next? How can we do this better? People are getting smarter. A lot of some of these bad hats are getting even better. So these are some things I don't have an answer. But I think most important thing here will be there are tools out there you can look at, and there are also industry sector players out there that we can tap upon. And I think that's, a very good way forward.
Anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, I think the first question, which has the most number of thumbs up, right? I think is worth delving a little bit on the biggest challenges. I think for a lot of us, right, looking at the uncertainty in the economy outlook, the Fed just raised the interest by 75 basis points, right, just last night. So inflation is coming, interest rates going up, coupled with geopolitical tensions, right? Nowadays, world leaders tend to take a more agonistic approach, right, towards policies and, no longer looking at, collaboration anymore. So it makes the world very unstable. And I think that is the biggest challenge, because when you pitch to the board about investing in some of these things, at the back of their minds are always thinking about how do I keep the company running and how do I even grow? Because once you stop growing, even in the face of uncertainty, you're not going to exist for very long, right? So how do you turn that narrative around and get the support you need, right, from the board, from the senior management? So I think that is the biggest challenge, right? When you have companies like aviation, badly hit by COVID, then the Ukrainian war, and now rising interest rates and inflation, which will hit travel very soon, because travel is a discretionary spending, right? That will be the first thing people will drop once it becomes too expensive. And it's already becoming way too expensive. So at the back of the minds of these, of the board members, it's about survival. And how do you turn that narrative around into a digital transformation? I think that's the biggest challenge, at least for my organization.
I'll take one step level from that one. How do you engage? Right. The third question there. How do you engage or excite your staff on the digital transformation journey? Especially, okay, so it hits you as well. Especially for those in public organization with very mature staff. So when somebody said very mature staff, I suddenly start to realize I've got white hair. Okay. Anyway, so how do you do that? How do you engage people from different age groups, different levels of history with the company and with the business to really jump into this digital thing and not be scared that I'm going to lose my job because of this?
Okay, I'll take that. I think, and I do have quite a fair bit of mature stuff. So one of the things in the museum, if you come over, right, you see all of guests, we call them visitor services people, right? All aunties, uncles, and all, those guys. They do the basic stuff today. They're very good at what they're doing, but they're not tech enabled. So you tell them, this is an iPad, I need you now to sell a digital ticket. They got no clue. We have that issue. But I think one of the most important aspects is you don't discount that they still do service your customers very well, just that they're not so sure in terms of what to do next. So how we've done it in the heritage sector was, we said that, okay, let's find out what's the most important thing that you have in your pocket. That's your mobile phone. Some of you have tablets. And we use that by also changing the way how they interact. Using simple applications, training them to do stuff very simply, changing the SOPs. Too many processes just doesn't cut, making it simple. Putting centralization in terms of security, in terms of layers that they don't see. While they still do the same work, they still do what they do well, we still allow that layer behind to make sure that we protect them. So that's the first thing. But the other thing also in terms of how to get them involved is you have to get them into focus groups, engage them, get them to understand where you're coming from, especially from the management standpoint, which we do. At the same time, we also need to understand from them what is the upskilling and also the other capabilities that we have to train them so they get better. So within the heritage sector, what I do, an iPad is very cheap, an iPad Air, very sexy. We give them all of them. I give all my staff an iPad Air because of what it means.
I want to work at your company.
You do want to do that? Sure. Why not?
I want an iPad.
But the important aspect is because then I put my applications in a very secure manner into their hands, whereby the window that they see in that iPad really means is that that's what you need to do your work.
Fair enough. Niles,
Yeah. Number of questions
are
are relating around staff and how do you bring them along, etc. So I think there's a number of things to think to take into consideration here. One, actually the engineers and the tech people in the traditional career path, it was all, you start as a junior developer, senior developer, then team lead, and then at some point you would sit on a management team. Very few people are interested in that. They much rather want to deepen their skills. They want to go from being a deep Java developer, maybe add some data engineering to it, but they want to stay in that. So we have completely changed our career architecture as a part of this and gone to what we call sort of engineering career path, which is a platform where you decide your journey on what you want to do, and you decide the skill sets you want to grow, and then we classify people on different levels across that. And then it creates communities, it creates an open marketplace where people can come and join, and I can, as a CEO, I can say, I have this project coming up, anyone who wants to come and help me work on it. So I think this is one notion that's very important. The second is business and tech actually working together. And it sounds, and we tried to do this for the last decade or two, I think, since Agile came out as a buzzword, but it's really hard, because you have to help the business understand what it means to be a product owner, what it stands to make trade-offs, what it stands to make prioritization, how technology actually works. You have a lot of education on that side, and just taking someone that's in the seat today and has knowledge as an SME does not mean they'll be a good product owner or product manager. So you really have to rethink that completely. And actually some successes we have seen, there was a question, I don't know if it's still there, about young graduates. Some young graduates actually are fantastic to come in to play this role, because they are excited, they're energetic, and they can be empowered to take these prioritization calls, interact with the business. Of course, it's not always easy, but it's a way to bring them along. And then I think the final thing is you constantly have to think about opportunities for people and enable a channel where they can come and interact with you and ask questions, and you place them around. So that's one of, I spend a lot of time on this simply because every single squad that we have, I need to make sure that people are comfortable, excited, and they feel they are growing. If they don't, if they stand still, they're frustrated with the current environment and talent, they are gone. So you have to change the interaction model a bit.
Okay. Hey, Jacky, at KRISSHOP, you transitioned from what was traditional retail, right? Then suddenly you had to shift to an e-commerce, almost virtual type of operation. How did you get the organization moving towards that? It must have been very traumatic for a lot of people who were used to doing something, and then they're going to have to almost instantly change to another model of work.
Yep. I think it goes back to your little question to me earlier this morning when we were having a chat. So pre-pandemic, majority of our business is in the duty-free sales card, which is the one that you push on the crew push around and ask you whether you want to buy duty-free items. So 70 to 80% of the business resides in the area. And during COVID, no flight, the whole business was impacted drastically. We nearly had zero sales for the in-flight sales, and then we had to totally pivot across to the e-commerce area within just a few months. But we were lucky in that sense. The change is not easy, definitely, because the people, the digital culture of the people is not there yet. Yeah. But we were lucky because a year before the hit of the pandemic, we already went through that whole review process that we have to move the business up. We cannot put all the eggs into one basket. We have to look at the e-commerce and the omni-channel aspect of things. And we started the project early, 1 year before the pandemic. So when the pandemic hit time, we were lucky in that sense where we have the e-commerce part of the business. And I think 6 months, we took a period of 6 months, and we went back to the pre-pandemic revenue level.
I'm going to go through this very quickly because I'm sure we're going to start running out of time soon. So the biggest challenge when justifying digital transformation project. We got, it's not showing here because there's a long list and the screen is very small. Who wants to take that one? Niels, this is yours, it'd be yours. What's the biggest challenge? If you have to pick one, okay, in your career, in your current role, what would be that one big challenge that you encountered during your digital transformation?
I think getting clarity on the value that things will bring and drive prioritization based on that. There's a lot of stuff, everyone wants to do everything, and there's thousands of projects, ideas, but really what are the 2-3 things that will move the needle?
Okay, thank you.
Invest time in that, I think is very important.
What about you, Hardy? I mean, what would have been that one big challenge that you faced?
Well, I think for us, it's innovation. So one of the areas that we look at now when you see the pandemic in the rearview mirror, they call it, and also all the economic challenges that are coming up, is how can innovation help us to bring the organization further? And for this, for the heritage sector, we do have a DigiMuse program that does that, and we work with industry as well as sectoral players today. It's been quite highly successful over the last 2 years. We think that's something that will still spur the interest and also will be one area we have to further improve and expand upon. Especially so because you find that now with having a lot of new startups and a lot of new folks that are coming into the market, the young guys that we have, how can we also tap onto their abilities and capabilities to help us?
Loy, I have this question.
So I'll just add one
Go ahead,
thing.
sorry.
And also, I think the other thing that's very important for this is moving from concept discussions, leaders sitting in a room and discussing concepts versus just doing things. Sometimes it's easier just to get a product owner, 2 developers, a data guy, and say 2 weeks, go and figure out how this works, come back. I think we are not bold enough in doing that. So that would be my big suggestion for a lot of organizations. Don't waste months sitting and discussing concepts, actually do something about it.
Jacky, there's a question there that should be right up your alley. When embarking on digital transformation journey, how would you manage data gravity? Well, you're sort of global, right, in a way, but the original area, since you're part of SIA. How do you manage data? Maybe we should get a quick definition here from this group. One word, what for you is data gravity?
I think it's data according to regulation in the markets we operate.
Hardy, what's data gravity to you?
Well, I think for us, it's really the type of data that we collect and also we utilize because we are actually in the visitor business.
Okay. Loy?
Yep, same data. I mean, it's nothing but just an asset, right? And how do you categorize it and gain insights out of it?
So when you have a large pool of data, how do you manage your data? And given you have to remember, there's a lot of security issues these days, right? So you're under a lot of pressure. Not just you want to transform, you want to be agile, you want to be everything. You want to have everything, including the kitchen sink, but at the same time, you have a security issue that's looking behind you and ready to jump at you if you make one mistake.
Yep. So, as you mentioned, there's a lot of data that is residing around, and of course, everyone wants to keep all this thing. And in the very early stage where we started this process, businesses or the business unit will just want to have as much information in the data lake or in the data warehouse as much as possible, but they have no idea what they want to do with the data. So you just keeping it and keep ingesting it and so on and so forth. So when we are going through this process, we review with the business side what is the exact need for this data. And before everything were to come in, there's always a process where we look through especially on the PI data, we do data hashing, we do encryption and make sure all these are very much secure before we even do our ETL and publish into dashboards for end users to use it. So the PI part is important actually.
Okay, quick one because it's not going, doesn't seem to go away, right? That one with a lot of people picking. If you have to pick one, can you do one word? What's your key digital investment IT in the next 12 to 18 months? Without revealing anything too confidential, I hope. If all of you can go through that process. Let's start with Loy over there. What's your answer for that one? What's the priority for BOC?
Yeah, for us, it's really touching the core of the business now. I mean, a lot of people call it digital transformation, but essentially it's just business transformation. You can't do business transformation without touching digital, and no point doing digital transformation without impacting the core of it, which is the business itself, right? So our biggest investment, I mean, we are at the visioning stage now, is really to really see how we can optimize the core of the business, and even look at the way we plot the workload versus the business activity, and categorize the different employees under which group. Those that have a very strong correlation to business activities, how do we put in solutions that will impact them more? So definitely focusing around the business itself. Yeah.
Jacky, what about your end?
Yeah, same thing for us. I think in the e-commerce and retail area, it's very competitive. So in the next 12 to 18 months, the focus is really on driving new revenue. Yep. And of course, the initiative that we do must have strong business impact. Yep.
Hardi?
And ours is a bit different because we are in the digital space. So for us, really, we are looking at edge compute and cloud. I think that's something that we want to move ahead very quickly. And that also allows us to scale, especially in terms of the new expectations of visitors and also foreigners that's going to join us in Singapore over time.
Yeah, for us, I think it's the north part is ecosystem partnership build out. The south part is fixing some of the old product engines.
There's a question that was posted. Has the COVID, this is one word, yes and no, okay, answerable yes or no. Has the COVID pandemic given you a boost in your transformation journey?
Yes.
Hardi?
Oh, of course, yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so at least we don't have a no over there. Okay. Here's a rather unusual one. Well, can I say it's unusual? How do you manage change? Can this thing stop moving around? How do you manage change management to bring early adopters to transformation programs deliveries? It's kind of long. I almost lost my throat there. How do you manage change management? That should be hard, right? Change management.
Change management, yeah. Actually, my view on this is we don't do it well enough. We have, and I think many organizations has a tendency, this is the way we do it today. This is the way the application works today. When we do something new, we are more or less just copy-pasting, maybe changing the user interface a bit. I think change management really comes from when you reinvent the way you do things, when you take a more sort of zero-based design approach to rethink, and it's very difficult to do because it puts a lot of people in a space that is uncomfortable.
Okay. Loy?
I think
You talk about digital transformation, right? You're going through that process. How do you handle this?
let them participate, right? Co-create, engage them. Today we are doing that, wrapping up our visioning phase, and we do a bottoms up. So we look at the current processes and bring in the subject matter experts and have them articulate what are the challenges that they're facing. So they are already part of the solutioning before we even talk about, bringing in a new software or re-engineering the current processes. And then there is a tops-down view, more like a revolutionary view from the senior management, which area we want to go into, what market segment we want to tackle. Do we want to rent engines instead of the whole plane? Do we want to go into helicopters? So it's really a top-down, bottoms-up, and really is to engage your stakeholders from the top and also from the bottoms up, and that will help facilitate the change itself. Yeah.
Here's an interesting one. It's not been voted up, but I still want to do it. Legacy systems. We all have them, right? Whether you're using Excel worksheets that are part of your legacy processes. So the question, okay, I hate this. Does legacy solutions still maintain or needs to be improved to adhere to digital? Well, this is a loaded question. Basically, I've got legacy solutions in place. If I want to do digital transformation, do I throw them all out, or what do I need to do do I keep them? And this is what IDC, one of the analysts told me that in Asia Pacific, 70% of applications today are still on-prem. No plans to migrate them to the cloud. They're introducing new applications. Those are heading for the cloud. But legacy systems are in place for whatever reason, depending on the industry, I guess. But no, Niels, your experience, can I keep my legacy system and while I'm going through a transformation, or is that like I'm shooting my head with something else?
Yeah, I think it's something you have to take a deliberate discussion and view on. some of the legacy systems you need to get out of because of either security or, for example, you have to do some data center migration. You have AS400 mainframes on that, but that doesn't work, right? How are you going to ship it from Hong Kong to Singapore on a ship? Nothing would work when it arrives here. So, but that said, this is literally a heart surgery. So only do this if it is absolutely necessary. I remember in my previous life, I was speaking a lot with a banking CIO, and like he worked with a legacy provider to modernize the surroundings, so to speak, of that platform to enable that to engage from a more digital perspective instead of replacing it, right? And I think there's many archetypes you can take, but think about it. Don't let it just sit there and then don't do anything about it.
Quick question, Hardy, this one's for you. Okay, you've gone through digital transformation in a way. Post-pandemic, what has changed so far as transformation initiatives or projects that are designed or executed? So let me read the whole thing. In the past, digital transformation is often performed silo. Okay, so finance will do it, HR will do it, sales and marketing will do it. They're all different units, which is what Niels doesn't like to do, and these are project transformations. So post-pandemic, after the pandemic, what has changed as far as how transformation initiatives or projects are designed and executed?
I think importantly, when you have the pandemic in your rearview mirror, you need to look at and move away from the silo way of thinking and doing into looking into more collaborative as well as co-creating within the organization. The reason being because you don't have much time. You have to pivot very quickly. And to pivot, you're looking at, instead of the last 24 months, you're looking now at within 6 to 12 months. And to do so itself, it also means that you have to move away from just having to set up teams and talk about it in small groups. You will have to also come in from the management level, from a stakeholder level, right down to the individual guys on the ground. And that's, I think, important change that has to take place. I think from a heritage sector perspective, and this is something that we go through, we did it in two ways. We did it by partnering the tech plus the OD function and doing it by establishing proper structures in place to drive. So not just a change, but also to look at how we redesign our customer experience as well as our business processes. And those things are something that are really complementary that you need to do. And we did see some success over the last 2 years.
Okay, we're down to the last question. Timers over there. If I could, and this is addressed to all of our panelists here, if you could think about it, there's one lesson that digital transformation 1.0 has taught you in your journey, how are we going to be able to apply this one lesson to what we are talking about, which is transformation 2.0, getting everybody internally to operate? Let's start off with the lawyer over there.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to get caught up in the heat, right, of transformation because you need to do it very quickly, right? And very often when we do that, we forget about the fundamentals of data privacy, security, or even simple things like identity management. So I think when we go into 2.0 or 3.0, whatever you want to call it, always go back to the fundamentals and address them. And believe me, when I tell you that I've seen a lot of companies rolling out M365 without even understanding the construct of PIM and start giving global administrator role to the entire help desk team, right? So some of these fundamentals has to be understood before we just blindly roll into the transformation. Yeah.
Jacky?
Okay, for me, I would like to, I always use this analogy in my talk. Technology is an enabler for business to reach their business objective. So I always like to use driving as analogy. So the vehicle is the technology. Okay, you're supposed to go from objective A to objective B. The people, which is the driver, is the business, the people that is driving the business forward. So no matter how good a technology you have, without the people using the technology, you will never reach your objective. Yep. So it's always about one biggest thing that I learned, be it whether it's transformation 1.0 or the two that we are going, change management is always the most important thing. Yep. And then the difference between the 2.0, now it's all about self-driving vehicle in future. You don't need a driver anymore.
I thought you need people in there. Hardy, what about in your case?
I think I'll give the analogy again on an electric vehicle in this case, right? Well, it's a new tech out there. I think most probably with all the new tech, it doesn't mean that new tech works. So you need to have a balance between what you're doing today and across your current business model and see how you can pivot, but at the same time, bear in mind that your business still needs to run. You have to make sure that you have that sustainability, profitability in place. And then after that, slowly adapt to it. I think the last part also is security and how that actually covers it, and that's one area that you shouldn't compromise.
Niels, last but not least.
I'll go back to my point on project versus platform product operations. I think if you think of projects, that defines an end state, which you don't really know. So I much rather want to think product platforms, creating smaller domains that are driving outcomes for the business and has a continuous sort of capacity and funding capability that drives those outcomes based on the changes in the environment. So I really think that's an absolutely critical enabler to do something meaningful in the 2.0.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask our audience to give a round of applause to our panelists here. Over to you, Felicia.